Everyone, it's so awesome to be here with you today to talk about ending Bill C-51. Today I want to talk to you guys a little bit about the criminalization of Indigenous people's rights movements, which is really one of my biggest concerns with this legislation. In years past, Indigenous peoples in Canada have had to deal with the criminalization of their identities, of their ability to represent themselves. We didn't get the right to vote until 1960. We weren't able to hire a lawyer to go to court to protect our rights until 1951. And we had our children taken away from us all through the residential school era, and it continues today. So this bill is of a huge concern because my biggest fear, and I think this will come to pass if it does go through, is that it will criminalize our rights to stand up for our rights. It will prevent us from legitimately opposing disrespect or denial of our constitutionally protected treaty rights and Aboriginal rights. This is going to be of a huge impact for Indigenous peoples across Canada, as well as for non-Indigenous peoples. A good example is the tar sands development. Treaty rights are one of the last remaining legal defenses against the continuation of the tar sands and extractive industry development. In order for us to use our rights to stand up for ourselves and our neighbors and friends around us, other Canadians, we need to be able to stand up and do so-called protests, which are really just telling the Canadian government to follow its own laws. So one of the biggest challenges internationally is that this is a huge trend. The criminalization of Indigenous people's rights movements is happening all over the world. And in fact, the Special Rapporteur on Anti-Terrorism, Counterterrorism issued 2 reports talking about the criminalization of Indigenous people's rights movements and how closely it is linked to movements to protect the environment. In 2007, Greenpeace was able to access an internal federal document that called Aboriginal peoples and environmental groups, quote-unquote, adversaries of the Canadian government when it came to extractive development. The problem with this, according to the Special Rapporteur at the United Nations, is that the use of the word adversaries is often used to trigger or to implement terrorism legislation within domestic governments. By characterizing Indigenous peoples just trying to protect their rights, by characterizing Canadians who are simply trying to protect the environment and protect future generations as adversaries, thus triggering the implementation of counterterrorism legislation against those innocent Canadians, this is going to have huge impacts on our ability to protect each other and Mother Earth. Let's put an end and let's call for the end of Bill C-51.